quickly respond to some of the things in the comment section. Someone says, can we push the referendum for them? No, we can't, and I'll tell you why. So you have a person who is not ready to do anything. He's not ready to leave. He's just puffing and puffing. It's all smoke. There's nothing. There's no substance to his rant. He's saying he wants to leave. His representatives are not pushing for that thing. He insults people on social media and says, what is it, this about the Southwest, all this Lagos, all this Nigeria, we don't even want it. Then somebody says, you must go. Then they say the person is a bigot. You say you want to leave. I say you can go. Now you're calling me a bigot. It means that you never wanted to leave in the first place. You're just a clown. As a matter of fact, clowns have more sense than that. The point is, it's not really about that thing you think they want. It's leverage for something else. Somebody came in the other time and said, let me read what he said, because I don't know if you guys think about this thing before you say it. Mr. Goodman, you call yourself. You said, why can't you guys accept that there is a great injustice against the Igbo since after the war? Tell me that injustice. What is that injustice that has been meted out to Igbo people since 1970? Tell me. You had the vice presidency in 79. The only thing you have not had since 70 is presidency. And that thing is not a toy. We're not in a gift shop where you can just take. This is not Oprah. This is not Oprah Winfrey's TV show. Hey, you get to be president. You also get to be president. So, Yoruba people president, Hausa president, Igbo president. There is no gift shop here. And the Hausas have not been president since 1999. As a matter of fact, they've not been president ever. There's no Hausa president in Nigeria's history. Why should there be an Igbo presidency? Why should there be a Yoruba presidency? And I've said these things several times. I should repeat it. Let me just say something, guys. There is no ethnic group in Nigeria, sincerely, that has any leverage over Nigeria in terms of presidency. So when you say things like, and you wrote it, and I knew that was where you were going. You know, we've been doing this thing for a bit. You said, why is that they've not, if I let me read to you so it doesn't look like I'm quoting you out of context. I'll read it one by one. First, you said, but why can't you guys accept that there's a great injustice against the Igbos since after the war? I said, what's the great injustice? I knew where you were going, and I mentioned it. Then you wrote in the comment section, you said here, how many Igbos have been president? Two. Two Igbos have been president. Our very first one, Nnamdi Azikiwe, and the one that destroyed everything, like what your brothers are trying to do right now. You don't see. I'll say what I was going to say earlier. No part of Nigeria has any leverage over Nigeria as a whole in 2025. In 1970, Nigeria ended the war that lasted 2.5 months. It was for 30 months, from 67 July to January of 70. They came up with the idea of no victor, no vanquished. They came up with Reconstruction and all of those things in the Southeast, which happened, by the way. Your elders may have lied to you that nothing was done in the Southeast. Please look for the name. Look up the name Ukwabi Asika. His son is one of the major people in entertainment today. He owns Storm Records, Obiasika. Look up the name Ukwabi Asika and what he did in rebuilding the East Central State. And look for how he got the money that he used, where those monies came from. I've said it before, I'll say it again very quickly. The money, primarily, of course, came from the federal government. The months when they were fighting, right, Aolo was the federal minister of finance and was the highest civilian in government, go figure. He saved the money of 66, the worst of 67, July 6, 67, the war started. The monies that should be going to the East Central State, royalties, allocation, and things like that, were being kept by the Minister of Finance, who was Awo. You know what? Now that we are here, I'm going to read to you what Awo said. 1983, Papa was in Abeokuta for campaign, all right? and he had somebody come to him to talk about the Southeast. I know people don't talk about this. There are two places you can find what I'm about to read right now. Okay, this book. Go on. The biography should take it slowly. The biography of a soldier statesman. This book by J. Isawa Eligo. I'll read this later, but let me start with Papa. I'm going to that thing about leverage later. Sorry, I mean, since after the war, the Igbos were given only 20 pounds to live with. Is that not injustice? Jesus Christ. Guys, do you mind? Do you mind, guys? I can't. You know what? I'll bring people up, you talk. We'll continue the series, right? We'll do that later. Let's answer some of these things because it's irritating. But let's start with the one. You just brought another one. Good man. I'm not sure how good you are, but we'll come back to that. Let's just take this one by one. Where should we start? Let's start with the money thing. During the war, this is Awo, 1983. During the war, I saw to it that the revenue which was due to the Igbo land, southeastern state, they called it, East Central state, they called it at the time. By the way, southeastern state back then is present day Akwa Ibom and Cross River state. East Central is the 5 southeastern states today. And then you had River State. During the war, I saw to it that the revenue which was due to the Igbo land, the East Central state, I kept it. I saved the money for them. And when they were liberated, I handed over the money to them, millions. If I had decided to do so, I could have kept the money away from them. And then when they took over, I saw to it that subvention was given to them at the rate of £990,000 every month. I was saved millions. Every other region was getting every other state got their own allocation. He saved the one that was supposed to go to the East Central state and put it in bulk, gave it to the people who built after the whole thing was over. And the very first administrator of the East Central state was Okwabi Asika, and has been credited for being one of the people who rebuilt spaces very fast. Like he did it at a very, very fast rate. Let's put it that way. And if you don't mind, at some point I'll read what Okwabi Asika actually said. It's in a book called Crisis and Conflict in Nigeria by A.H.M. Green. So if there's time, I'll read that later. So here, I was saying that everything that went to other states, the ones that belong to the 5 Igbo states of today, he kept that money and gave it to the administrator after the war. That was one. Number two, they gave a subvention of £990,000 every month. Every month. Okay, let me finish that one. I didn't go to the executive council to ask for support or for approval because I knew if I went to the executive council at that time, the subvention would not be approved because there were more enemies in the executive council for the Igbos than friends. And since I wasn't going to take a percentage from what I was going to give them, and I knew what I was doing was right, I wanted the states to survive. I kept on giving the subvention, 990,000, almost a million every month. And I did that for other states, of course, southeastern states, north central states, Kwara, and so on. But I did that for the Igbos. And when the war was over, I saw to it that the ACB, that's African Continental Bank, the ACB got £3.5 million to start with. Not money they worked for, money that the government gave for one reason, so that traders will be able to access loans to begin again. I saw to it that the ACB got £3.5 million to start with. This was distributed immediately, and I gave another sum of money. The attitude of the experts, officials at the time of the ACB was that ACB should be closed down. And I heard the view, you couldn't close the ACB down because by the way, that's Nnamdi Azikiwe's bank. The one that they used to siphon £877,000 in 1955. But that's another day's topic. The attitude of the experts, officials at the time of the ACB was that ACB should be closed down. And I held the view you couldn't close the ACB down because that is the bank that gives finance to the Igbo traders. And if you close it down, they will find it difficult to revive or to survive. So it was given. I did the same thing for the Cooperative Bank of Eastern Nigeria to rehabilitate all these places. And I saw to it as a commissioner for finance that no obstacle was placed in the way of the Ministry of Economic Planning in planning for rehabilitation of the war affected areas. 1 second. I need to find that page. I want to read something to you from Gowon's biography. The point here is this. What Awo did, your elders never tell you. Why? Because they need to push the narrative that he hates you. If you believe that, it's not your elders' fault. It's your fault because you're supposed to have a brain. You can't be old with your baby. You say my father told me something. Have you checked to be sure? All right, the book is called Go On, the biography of a soldier statesman, written by Professor J. Sawelako, who passed on earlier this year. May so rest in peace. So let's work with this. By the way, if you want to know about Ukwabi Asika, there are 3 books you should read. This one, the biography of a soldier statesman. Read Obasanjo's My Command, because Obasanjo was the one who recommended Ukwabi Asika, who was in UI at the time. And then the last book is The Crisis and Conflict in Nigeria. I'll read that later. Let me finish this one. With the end of the Civil War, one of the most immediate demands on Gowon's government was one of providing relief for the suffering masses of the newly affected areas. The need for shelter, food, and medicines for the war-affected population became more glaring than ever. To further complicate issues was the simultaneous necessity for rehabilitation and reconstruction to restore electricity, water, transport, and communications. So also was there the urgent need to resettle farms, reopen factories, and facilitate the resumption of normal economic life. There was no doubt that Gowon had anticipated these problems. The appointment of Mr. Ukwabi Asika, an Igbo lecturer at Ibadan, to coordinate relief materials and see to refugee problems of the East Central State was a blessing to the Igbos. True enough, Ukwabi Asika stands vilified today among many Igbo people. He, for some, had betrayed the Igbo cause, and after the war had mismanaged the affairs of the state. Asika's acceptance of the job was a demonstration of singular courage and belief in principles. Even with a price tag set on his head by Ojuku's secessionist government, Asika went on to do his job undaunted. He helped a great deal later to alleviate the sufferings of the Igbos. By the end of the Civil War, Mr. Ukwabi Asika had re-established administrative structures in the East Central State, of which he became the administrator. His government provided a sense of direction amidst confusion, courage amidst despair, predictability amidst fluidity, and solace and support amidst misery and abject poverty. In this Gowon's support for Asika's government was most essential, as was the immense cooperation of the military. Human memories being too short, perhaps not many Igbos have pondered and imagined what would have happened without Asika's preparatory work in Igbo land, even while the war raged on. It made the job of resettlement, reconciliation, and rehabilitation much easier than this could have been. Apart from this appointment of Mr. Asika and giving support to him, Gowon also authorized the establishment of Abandoned Properties Committee in all states to administer and collect rent on all properties belonging to Igbos who had abandoned such properties during the 1967-70 crisis. Many Igbos returned after the war to huge sums of money, which helped to resettle them. In some cases, there were problems of restoration of properties. The Rivers State case vividly demonstrated the residual legacies of pre-war bitterness in the system. One of these days, we can have another session to discuss what really happened with the abandoned properties and the case of Rivers State. By the end of 1971, quite an appreciable amount of work had been done with regard to rehabilitation, reconstruction, and resettlement. About 120 million naira worth of cash and materials had been expended on rehabilitation work in Nigeria within the period 1970 to 1971. The value of assistance from abroad was estimated at 64.6 million naira. University of Nsukka received 12 million for reconstruction. 6 million was spent on rehabilitation of industries. The African Continental Bank was granted 5 million naira for its reopening. This is what I was looking for. I found it. Sorry, guys. It took a while. Took us a while, but we're finally here. We are here. So here's what I was trying to get to. Awo said he gave 3.5 billion, the first payment to ACB. They're saying here that eventually it was 5 million naira. The point is this. Folks from the Southeast do not know what the government did. So the only thing they talk about is the fact that government owes them something and nothing was done to help them because your parents or your folks did not tell you the truth. They didn't tell you the truth. Now, you said the 20 pounds. Let me explain the 20 pounds. I can't believe I want to do this again. I did it last week. There are 3 groups of people as far as the 20 pounds was concerned. Number 1, very few people were banked. Very few people used banks in Nigeria in 1966, 67. Very few people. Let's start with that one. Let's stop deceiving ourselves. Very few people use banks. That's number 1. Number 2, everyone who had bank accounts and could prove the fact that they had bank accounts, they got their monies back. E.g., the former Governor General of our Nigerian, what's his name now? As if I can remember his name. He did a video on himself and his brother. Their father was called by Barclays Bank and informed that he had £6,000 after the war with interest. The surname started with N. John Nwodo. Is Nwodo. No, yes, Nwodo. I have a video here, but we're not going to play it because of time. He mentioned that his father was called by Barclays Bank, and they told him that, listen, you have £6,000, and it's proof, right, that those who had a way to prove that they had money in banks were able to get their money back in full, in some cases with interest. That's number one. Give me a second. I'm going to play you his video so that way we're all on the same page. Take a listen to this gentleman. His name again is Chief John Nwodo, John Nwodo, who was a former president of Ohaneze Ndigbo. Take a listen, please.
For that £6,000 that was left in the money, my father discovered it 6 months after the war, when the manager of Barclays Bank then, which is now Union Bank, called him and revealed to him that he had £6,000 plus interest, which were not tampered with during the course of the war. My dad then decided to buy a Mercedes lorry bus. That time in the southeast, all the vehicles that were there had been used during the war, and many had been cannibalized, and the few that survived were smoking or hardly in any good condition to traverse state territories. There was no farming throughout the war, and a lot of people who were compressed in few communities where the war did not reach did not have enough food cultivated in those communities to sustain them. So all the food that were coming to the east were brought from the west and the north, principally from the north.
That's the man talking about what happened to his father. £6,000 in 1970, 6 months after the war. So if you had your money, you had passbooks, you will get your money back. Like I said, there are 3 categories. The second category were people who went with Nigerian pound before January 1968. And what happened was that Ojukwu, at this point, I want to read Awolowo. Ojukwu had stolen money. In fact, let me read to you. So I be like say, go hear him for yourself. The case of the money they said that was not given to them, during the war, all the pounds were looted. They printed Biafran currency notes, which they circulated at the close of the war. Some people wanted the Biafran notes. I'll explain it later. Yeah. The banks were looted. There are 3 banks that were looted here. It says Port Harcourt, Calabar, and found it. It's on record that Ojukwu admitted that 2 things defeated him in this war. That is, at the day he left Biafra, he said, 1, the change of currency. He said that was the first thing that defeated him, and we did that to prevent Ojukwu taking the money which his soldiers stole from our central bank for sale abroad to buy arms. We discovered he looted our central bank in Benin, he looted the one in Port Harcourt, looted the one in Calabar, and was taking the currency notes abroad to sell to earn foreign exchange to buy arms. So I decided to change the currency. So the point basically is this: he stole money from these banks. I was going to use the money to buy weapons to fight Nigeria, whose money he stole. And while he was doing, by the way, the soldiers did not just do it, he commanded them to do it. If you want to know another source, you'll find it. Read Adewale Ademoyega's Why We Struck. He actually mentioned exactly how it was done. And if you also read this book, Colonel Victor Banjo, The Revolutionary Betrayed. Anyway, if once they notice that this guy has stolen money, they change the currency so that they could protect Nigeria, right? So if you had your money and during the time Nigeria changed the currency, you did not submit your old money to get the new currency, like the old design to get the new Nigerian pounds, your money was Otilonie. And there's a woman, her name is Angela Okori. She had an interview with CNN some years ago, and she mentioned how she, although she was in Igbo land, was able to change her own money. This was even during the war. She changed her money and she was selling potash, she was selling cigarettes and weed and all kinds of things. That's the second group. The third group were the people who took the Nigerian pounds, gave it to Ojukwu, and collected Biafran pounds from him. And after the war was over, now took the Biafran pounds to Nigeria and said, Nigeria, take Biafran pounds, will give us naira. Say, what's happening? Now, what's the value of the Biafran pounds? It's not like, okay, it's just, okay, what's it benchmarked on? Like, is it gold? No. Is it dollar? No. It's just vibes and inshallah. That's what the currency is based on. So what's the value of this thing? Someone said tissue paper was worth more than Biafran pounds. Just in it's not even worth the cost of the thing they used to print on it. Like, it was worthless. So how exactly was I just supposed to pay for the I mean, the person you gave your money to run to Cote d'Ivoire, why should Nigeria be the one paying you for you taking your money and giving it to someone else? So what did Awolowo do? Awolowo, the benevolent, he said, you know what, let's give these people 20 pounds so that at least they'll be able to use it to it's an ex gratia payment, not a debt owed to the Igbos. It was something done based on magnanimity. It was a benevolent act. Like, these are our brothers, they're going to start again. Let's give. And it's not all of them that had bank accounts. One. Number two, it's not all of them that didn't come to change their money in Nigeria. Number three, if you put your money and give it to Ojukwu, why should I be the one to bear the brunt of that? And like I said, if you study the American Civil War, after the Civil War, they didn't give the South nothing. They didn't give the South nothing. The South lost, and that was it. Nigeria is the one where they will give people money, and if they give money, will sit down, you there to carry you. You know, if you give somebody something and the person says it's too small, you tell the person to give it back to you. I'm Yoruba. That's what we do in Yoruba land. If I give you something and say, it's too small, my friend Tony there. Oh, Nilu any. It's something you should be grateful for. Like, your generation should be grateful that a man like that thought it wise that, listen, these people are in the same country. Let's also, help them to get started. Meanwhile, he had ensured that 3.5 million pounds got to ACB, that's African Continental Bank, so that you will be able to access it and use the loans. And send another money to send to Cooperative Bank of Eastern Nigeria. Nobody talks about this in the Southeast. It's always crying. So 20 pounds was something that was done out of benevolence. I don't know why you think it's a problem, but if you think it's a problem, you guys should gather it together and send it back. Lastly, what I really wanted to say before you ask that other question is this. There's no region in Nigeria that has any leverage over Nigeria. You fought a war, you lost. There's nothing like no victor, no vanquished. It's a mistake of our elders. And they did it because they were trying to do good people, great nation. And it's okay. Like Professor Dora Quinley, the blessed. That woman was blessed. She used to say good people, great nation. So that was why they did it. No victor, no vanquished. But to be honest, you were vanquished. Nigeria was the victor. And here's the problem. The reason I'm saying that, because if we don't tell you that, which is the mistake of our parents, I used to talk about 3 V's. I added another one, making 4. There are 4 V's. There's victor, there's vanquished, there's victim, there's villain. And the 2 things will happen because there's a vacuum. The truth is, you're not the victor. You didn't win anything. You will not want to be called the vanquished because you have pride, which is natural and is okay. You should have been called that. But because you were not called that, you have now made yourself, the vacuum now exists. You now put something in the vacuum, is victimhood. You now say you are the victim and you make the Nigerians villains. We're not villains. We helped you. My fathers helped you. Maxwell, your parents are burning, like you are writing in the comment section. You're talking about your parents and your elders in your family. Continue. Where was I? After you lost the war, 9 years after you lost the war, you produced the vice president of Nigeria. That doesn't happen very easily. 9 years. your parents, Maxwell, your parents lost the war, and Nigeria still made sure that by the 1979 elections, the three major parties that ran had an Igbo on their tickets. 1979. There was NPN, Shehu Shagari, had an Igbo vice presidential candidate, Alex Ekweme. There was NNA, had an Igbo presidential candidate, Azikiwe. There was UPN, had Obafemi Awolowo as the presidential candidate, and his vice president was Philip Umeadi, Igbo. The three major parties in 1979 had Igbos either as presidential candidates or as vice presidential candidates. So no matter what happened, they had something 9 years after the war, and they got Alex Ekweme became vice president. How many? If you had won, you'd have killed all of us. How do I know? Read the letter that Ojukwu wrote to Victor Banjo. I will take everywhere from Lagos to Jeba. Read Anthony Enauro's speech, 12th August 1968 at Addis Ababa. What they were planning to do in the north after taking everywhere and destroying everywhere. They had no shame. They had no good plan for anybody, just to destroy everyone and take over everybody's lands. But Nigeria was like, you know what, let's bring everybody back together. 9 years after the war, you had a vice president. You cannot use the war for anything anymore. There's no leverage like, oh, we went through the war. You heal. You got a president 9 years after, a vice president 9 years after the war. Anything else is going to be based on the game, political game. And if you're not a politician, leave it to them. They will find a way to play their politics. You don't understand it, leave it alone. But don't expect that you come here and be saying, we went through the war, why are we not president? If you're not president, because you cannot become president based on just vibes and say, oh, I lost, make you what? Someone say vice president is nothing, almost powerless. Hey, go and look for your president that has. Who told Nnamdi Azikiwe not to win the election? Should we give it to him because he's Igbo? We already gave three. In other words, no matter what happens, one of you will win something. Vice president here, presidential candidate here, vice president here. 3. Again, Alex Ekweme, Nnamdi Azikiwe, Philip Omiadi. 1-1. At least one did. If you're not happy with that, that's your business. It also goes to show how ungrateful you are. That's one. Number 2, me, I'm Yoruba. We don't even have that leverage as Yoruba people. We had an issue in 1993 when the election was annulled, MK Abiola's election. So 99, they said, you know what, this guy, let's just allow Yoruba people to have it. And even with that, in PDP, Alex Ekweme still went for primaries, even though he wasn't supposed to. Still went to become president. Anyway, we got that, and since that time we have kept quiet. If you want to play the game, nobody says, oh, because of 1993 they make me president. The South had their own stuff. By 2007, they were also settled with vice presidential candidate. I mean, the reason Goodluck Jonathan became vice president was to settle the old war that was happening in South. And you came and said vice president means nothing. Well, thank God for people like Jonathan and Ijaw people. They know that it means something. And they took advantage of it. And so when what happened, sadly, he finished the term. But beyond finishing the term, he won. You wouldn't win because you're not grateful for the little you were given. How would you win? Just tears. Oh, you owe us. Nobody owes anybody anything in this country. May God bless all of us. Every Nigeria is blessed. Every country, every region is blessed. Nobody owes you anything. The East has gotten what they should get based on the war. The Southwest got what we're supposed to get based on the annulment. The South got what they were going to get based on the agitation. And that's it. Any other person, you come to the field of play, you play. If you lose, you lose. You try again. And that's why, I don't know if you guys have even sat down to even think. You tried something once, Peter B, and since that day you have been hating on everybody. What should Buhari do? Buhari tried 3 times, 12 years of his life. The first time he contested was 2003. He didn't win until 2015. 4 cycles. He lost the first time, even though he had 12 million votes, way more than what your Messiah had. He tried again. He had lots of votes, but he didn't have the 2/3 in all the states across Nigeria. He tried again. It was the fourth try that he won. You tried once, you lost. You say it's because of your ethnicity. Are you not dumb? If you lost, you try again. And if you lost again, you try again. Do you know how motivational speaker Abraham Lincoln? You keep trying. Or like we have our own, shall we have Buhari? You try. You lose, you try. You win. Praise God. If you lose, you try again. But to now say because you had one war, people should vote for you. How does that help Nigeria? The fact that you went through suffering. Have you even healed? Somebody say Atiku has not won. Atiku has not won. He's been trying. Have you ever heard him come around and say, "Oh, it's because I'm from Adamawa, that's why they hate me"? This thing is they said it's retarded. I've finished answering your question. Don't ask any other one. I'm not answering again. I hope with these few points of mine, I hope you got the point. And if you don't got the point, there's no point. But I hope you got the point. But I'm not expecting you to get it because some of you don't want to get the point. But the truth is, Nigeria will no longer be blackmailed by a set of people who would not be content with anything, no matter what happens. Someone says, but Nigerians should not give Igbo chance to be president. Let me not see. Let's just leave it alone. Let's just leave it alone. Maybe the question should be asking. Let me even ask you a question. This guy. How come Northwest, South, all 80 Igbos, they should think of it? If everybody is hating you, maybe there's something wrong with you. Everybody can't be hating you. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever studied what happened when you were president? I am good man. Is that your name? Have you ever studied what happened when you were president? Let me give you an assignment. It's not too much. Study recruitment into civil service. Just two things, not too many. Federal civil service, recruitment to federal civil service, one, and the ambassadors in Nigeria between 1960 and 1964, and between January 66 and July 66. Then come back and tell me if anybody that went through that at your hands will want you to come and rule over them again. That's the answer. If you like, whatever you think is fine. Thank you very much. I hope I answered your question. Somebody said I will spend a lot of time answering it. I know I did, but I just wanted to. No matter how much you explain, their mind has been projected to reject the truth. The truth of the matter, Ebenezer, let me even say this. I don't repeat these things necessarily because of people that ask the question. I know they're not answering to get the answers. But I need Nigerians to be equipped. Where you can have compassion on people and say, oh, you went through this, that's so sad. Oh, yeah. But the person will not be able to use that against you and say, because I went through this, you must give me what is yours. Or because I went through this, you must give me this. The only reason we have been blackmailed for many months or many years is that we are mostly ignorant about these things. The answer is not really for him. That's why I said, whether I get it, he may not get it, that's fine. The point is that those of us who are Yoruba, who are Hausa, who are different ethnic groups, should know what happened so that your empathy will not be weaponized. In other words, be compassionate, be empathetic, feel the pain that the Igbos went through. And they went through terrible stuff, right? Feel that pain and then see. And that's what Nigeria did. If we have time, we can read. I would have read this book and read to you how Nigerians were putting clothes. Forget government. Nigerians, especially in Yoruba land, were gathering clothes to send to the southeast. Why? Because they were empathetic. Why would people have houses abandoned, right? Leave for the southeast, come back months later and discover that they had rent? Because their Yoruba neighbors, not one, not two, the Yoruba neighbors took over those houses, refurbished those houses, rented those houses out, and they collected the money and kept the money for 2.5 years. And when the Igbo neighbors got back to Lagos, to Ibadan, gave them the money. And yet you have the children of these ones insulting me. Do you not know that insulting me is bringing a curse on you and your generation? Like when you insult Yoruba people after all the things that their fathers did for you, you are cursed. Not because they are cursing you, but because you are ungrateful. How many houses were taken over in Yoruba land? Not one. Not one. The most famous example is the one that involved the same Alex Okoma I mentioned earlier, the former vice president. His building. It was Shubobin Balogun, the owner of FCMB, who took over his house and saw that it was going, derelict, and people were, boys were using the place and constituting nuisance. Fixed it up, rented it out, took the money, gave it when this guy got back from the southeast, gave him the money. In different parts of Yoruba land, I've read stuff. I've had people send messages to me. Once told me about. I think I talked about this last week. The mother, a neighbor went to the mother and gave the mother all his sewing stuff, machine and stuff, and then she hid these things. Anyway, he came after the war, and he wasn't, according to her, he wasn't really expecting anything. But what she did was she went to hide. It was like a well, like a dry well, where she had kept everything belonging to that guy or to that family. They got back, everything was given back to them, and their generations, their children are the ones insulting Yoruba people and saying that you gave us this, we hate you, you hate us. What kind of nonsense is this? If they hated you, we have videos of Yoruba elders asking for Igbos to come back. And I said it the other day. I did a video on it some time ago. There's a video, I intentionally did those two videos at the same time. There's a video of Yoruba elders in 1970 saying Igbos should come back, and the interviewer, British, was like, oh, but they did something, they went to break the country and everything. You know what Yoruba elders were doing? They were making excuses for them. They're like, oh, no. They were deceived. They're good people. It's just their leaders that, deceived them. And they were misinformed. That's the word. They were misinformed. They are good people, want them back. That same month, I also have another video of an interview in Port Harcourt. And those men said it clearly. We don't want them back. Thank you, Babati. That's the word. They were misled. Not misinformed. They were misled. Said they were misled. They were misled. It was just one of those things. Want them back. That same month in Port Harcourt, we have the video of another interview of men saying we don't want Igbos back. So you put the two videos together and you're like, why would you curse me?
Igbos will be your brothers after this war. We like them. They are still Nigerians. We want them. That's why we are fighting for unity.
Do you think they will like you so much, though, after all this?
But I can say that we know that we like them.
Do you feel it will be easy to integrate them in Nigeria now?
They are already Nigerians.
What?
They are already Nigerians. We never disputed them.
Well, they disputed it, though, didn't they?
No, they didn't dispute.
Well,
They were misled.
Well, they set up a country of their own, called it Biafra.
They were misled, not that they.
Oh, they were misled.
They were misled, and they've now seen the light.
What of the Igbos?
Igbos, though we are all one Nigeria, but they misbehave themselves, and we feel at the moment, at this time, they should remain in their East Central state.
You don't think there is a place for them to work down here now?
At the moment, I don't think so.
Do you think it will come in the future?
That future can tell.
But not now.
Not now.
Maybe it was a mistake our elders made. Maybe the folks in Port Harcourt knew how to treat people better. Maybe folks in the north, maybe they knew how to treat people better. Maybe your people were just too emotional and too whatever. I don't know. But I prefer that, by the way. Even if it makes me look soft, I'll still leave that way because I don't want my children to grow up with hate and contempt. But guess what? There are certain people in Nigeria, it's those who have contempt for them that they have respect for. Which is, shall be careful in Yoruba land, because all this nonsense, you did something for. What did I do for you? You should be thanking me for throughout your lifetime. When you hear yo, before you hear Yoruba, whether it's yo or yogurt, once you hear yo, just say, Father, I thank you for those people. That you should be doing. But no, ingrates. I'm not saying everybody is like this, by the way, but I think it's a rule that you must be a victim. And not to be a victim, you have to blame others. And when you look around to blame people, you always blame the people that are close to you, even for things they never did. This is a rule. There are Igbos who are not like this. They are the exception. But the rule is that you must be the victim. And if you don't know how you're like this, I'm sorry, guys. I know I'm spending time. Maybe it's going to help somebody. Listen. Victimhood in Igbo land has nothing to do with Nigerian civil war. If you're Igbo, You should know it. If you're not able, please know it. Victimhood in the Southeast has nothing to do with Nigerian civil war. Victimhood is a strategy that the Southeast has deployed since the 1940s. It was so bad that the Governor General of Nigeria had to complain about it in 1947. We have the record. The book is somewhere here. I just want to open because of time. I want other people to speak. It's a strategy. Oh, see what you have done to us. See what you have done to us. 47, the man was complaining. 49. Look at Nnamdi Azikiwe's speech in Asaba. So in Abba, he's blaming the people that are close to you. The General of Nigeria had to complain about it in 1947. We have the record. The book is somewhere here. I just want to open because of time. I want other people to speak. It's a strategy. Oh, see what you have done to us. See what you have done to us. 47, the man was complaining. 49. Look at Nnamdi Azikiwe's speech in Asaba. So in Abba, 1949 Abba. In that speech, Azikiwe was still forming victim. What did the Governor General say in 47? He said, these people contribute the least in terms of revenue, but they demand for more and more. They clamor, that's the word, they clamor for more and more of everything. We are marginalized, we are marginalized, we are marginalized. That's what it means. It's not because there's marginalization, it's because it's a strategy that works. Read Azikiwe's 49 speech. He said, oh, we have been taxed without representation. They've taken our stuff. First, he has said that they are the biggest in Africa. God has specially created the Igbo race to lead the tree of Africa from the bondage of the ages. They are Aryan race of black world, whatever that is. Then he went on to say, oh, they didn't give us this. They've taken our taxes to develop other places. And like, taxes from where? 2 years ago, the government was just complaining about the fact that you are contributing the least. Taxes from where? And I hear the same thing today, even on social media. You hear people say things like, oh, you are using oil. You're using our oil money to develop Lagos. Oil from the southeast. The southeast produces 2.1% of crude oil in Nigeria. Lagos alone produces more about 2.5. And Lagos is not even a major oil producer. The entire southeastern state that produce anything called crude oil, Anambra, Abia, Imo, combined 2.1%. Edo State produces about 2.3, 2.4. Lagos about 2.5, 2.6. Ondo is about 3.8, between 3.8 and 4.3. That's Ondo State. Then you have the big boys, Delta, Akwa Ibom, Rivers, Bayelsa. How can three states that produce 2.1% say Lagos is using their money when Lagos actually produces more oil than the three states combined? You don't think about this thing because it's a rhetoric that you have to just keep saying. You hate us, you're blackmailing us, you're marginalizing us, we are your victims, we are this. I'm like, you're not a victim. You come up.